Today's saint is a model for all mothers, and she gives us a very bright idea of something of the virtue of Our Lady herself. She helps to illustrate different qualities of every good mother. The most we know about her, the charm of her virtue, her devotedness, we know from her son, who wrote about it in his autobiography. It is the book called St. Augustine's Confessions. And there he, with affectionate gratitude, speaks, when he goes through his whole life, concerning his mother, saying she wept over him more than other mothers weep over the dead body of their children. That is, she wept for his spiritual death. He had lived an immoral life, and then he even left the faith. He became a heretic. Saint Monica, during that whole time, it was many years, about 17 years, that he was strayed from the right path. She prayed, and she did works of charity. As a widow, she had no other duties to keep her, so she would feed the poor and was often seen at church night and day. And the local bishop, he had a great respect for her, and even St. Ambrose, the saint of the Bishop of Milan. So at length, St. Augustine, he was an orator, a great orator in his local city, but he left. He went to go to Rome, which was the big city at that time. And St. Monica did her best to try to dissuade him, knowing that he was already not living a good life, but Rome, being such a wealthy city, it was not going to be a good place for him to go. It could not help him, at least as far as she could see. And so she begged him and pleaded with him with all her heart, and he would not listen. He was indifferent to her love, her tears, and so he went to Rome seeking a glorious career. And there, it happened, by God's providence, he met a bishop. That was St. Ambrose. And St. Ambrose was also a great orator. So there was some common ground, and so St. Augustine found he had respect for him, at least in that regard. And so he would listen to his sermons, beginning at first for the beauty of his eloquence, but he was also beginning to hear the truths in a new way. And he was receiving graces because of the tears of his mother at home. And so he started to be persuaded back to the true faith. And then St. Monica, as soon as she was able, she actually followed him to Rome. She moved to Rome so she could try to keep an eye on him and always be there to encourage him to come back and to dissuade him from living his immoral life. St. Ambrose, whenever he would see his mother, he would tell St. Augustine, he would praise her for her great holiness and virtue. He would tell him, you should be very thankful to have such a mother as St. Monica. One day, St. Augustine, he came to his mother and told her that he was now determined, he was now sure that the heresy he embraced was not true. He was no longer of this Manichaean sect, as it was called. Yet he was not certain of the Catholic faith either. He was still indifferent towards it. But she already began to rejoice. She saw that God was hearing her prayers. And so she was encouraged to persevere in her different acts of penance and devotion. And St. Monica, her prayers and tears, at the end, they won the day. St. Augustine, you may know the story, by a miracle, he heard a voice telling him to pick up a book and read. And it was the Gospel of St. Paul. And reading that epistle, he was converted wholeheartedly. and even more than St. Monica could ever have expected, because he came to her with a friend and told her that he was going to change his life. He was going to be baptized. He had not yet been baptized. And so she was present with great joy while he was baptized. But even more, he was not now determined to live in the world anymore. He said he was going to live the most perfect life possible for him. He was going to enter into religion. Saint Monica, her prayers had been answered, and in a way far more beautiful than she could ever have imagined or even asked for. She only wanted him to be saved, and now he is to become a religious, and soon he would be a priest, a bishop, and even a doctor of the church, one of the greatest doctors. And St. Augustine, it's quite touching, his remark when he wrote this in later years about one of the last conversations he had with his mother. They were, after all this had been done, he had been converted and baptized, they were going to go back home to Africa, northern Africa, and they were waiting for a ship. They were just having a relaxing evening together. They were just talking, and they were talking about the future life, heaven. St. Augustine wrote, "I and she were alone and were standing near a window of our lodging, which commanded a view of the garden. And we were having a most charming conversation, forgetting the past and stretching forward to things beyond. And we were talking about the future life of the saints, which eye hath not seen, nor ear hath heard, nor hath it entered into the heart of man. And whilst thus talking about it, and our hearts seemed to bound forward and reach it, we sighed and left the first fruits of our spirits there in heaven. And then my mother said to me, 'My son, as far as I am concerned, there is nothing now that can give me pleasure in this life. I know not what I can do or why I should be here, now that I have nothing to hope for in this world. There is only one thing for which I desire to live somewhat longer, and it was to see thee, a Catholic, before my death. God has granted me this and more, for I see that thou hast despised earthly things and become his servants. What do I here?' And shortly after this they departed. She would take a fever and she would die before returning. She never returned home. What is most remarkable of St. Monica, her love, her persevering love for her son, who, despite his indifference, even his insulting her request, she wept for love of him. Later on, he did not always appreciate those tears, but he would when looking back. And so it is with Our Lady with regard to her children, us. She has loved us from the beginning. If we were to write, even today, an autobiography of our lives hitherto, of our confessions, we may call it, where would she be in the picture? How often were we about to fall over the precipice into some sin? Perhaps we were held back. Was it not Our Lady? Was it not her tears of love? Or perhaps we fell, but now we are risen again. Who was it? Was it not Our Lady in her tears? When we spend time with her in relaxed conversation, that is meditation, we just think of her, her life, and we say some words to her, our hearts will burn with love for her and long for heaven. Even as St. Augustine had the same ardent burning, speaking to his mother, And Our Lady is more a mother, more holy than even St. Monica. So remember, look back at your life, like St. Augustine, and you will find many causes to rejoice, to thank Our Lady, and to appreciate the many tears she has shed for you. Our Lady has many children, it is true, but God has given her a heart big enough to love each of us as though we were her only child. And what you should ponder most of all today, how is it that she can love us so much, each of us, that she would weep for us? She who had Jesus Christ for her son, and even now enjoys the most perfect bliss in heaven. How is it she still has solicitude for us? She does, we know this. And it seems somehow, as wretched as we may be, she cannot be happy until we are saved, until we are with her. She will not be content. If you will now kneel down, we'll say a prayer in honor of St. Monica.